LSE sent the first press statement that confirmed Ng Wen Tsai's 1984 PhD to the Taiwan People News on June 12, 2019. Regarding the validity of Tsai's 1984 PhD, at the time, LSE only had Simeon Underwood's email dated July 2, 2015, and the list of 1984 PhD graduates found in the 1985–1986 LSE calendar. These are LSE records, not UoL records. Underwood's email was sent to LC at the Senate House on July 2, 2015, at 1640. One of the issues he raised was jurisdiction. Whose issue is this? Given that the issues are around the examination and its aftermath, my instinct is that they come under your jurisdiction rather than ours. Which means that if we get further inquiries, we should acknowledge and say that we are passing them over to you. But if you want to disagree with this approach, please say. LC responded the next day at 1534. Please do pass any inquiries regarding this PhD examination on to me. It confirms that UoL had jurisdiction over the PhD exam and PhD award. On November 26, 2021, the Information Commissioner found that it was UoL that had the records pertaining to Tsai's PhD examination. The Commissioner's finding was based on UoL's jurisdiction, not Tsai's LSE student file. The VV file confirms the Commissioner's finding. There is no detailed information about the PhD exam in the VV file, except for the Viva result notification date and a planned thesis submission date. Accordingly, only the UoL can confirm Tsai's 1984 PhD degree based on Tsai's UoL student file. Underwood knew that UoL had jurisdiction and requested to pass all inquiries arising from Tsai's non-existing doctoral thesis to UoL, but, as the LSE academic registrar, he confirmed the validity of Tsai's 1984 PhD awarded by UoL. I have asked my colleagues to retrieve Dr. Tsai's file from our archive. Although I have seen a scanned version of it, I want to double-check by looking at the paper version. From what I have seen so far, there is no doubt that the degree award is valid. There may be features of the process which reflect the academic habits of the mid-1980s and would be frowned upon today. But we have issued to whom it may concern letters confirming the degree in the past, and on the evidence available to me at present, I see no reason why we shouldn't do so now. There is no doubt that the degree award is valid, was a conclusion that could only be made based on Tsai's UoL student file, not Tsai's LSE student file. There may be features of the process which reflect the academic habits of the mid-1980s and would be frowned upon today, was an observation that could only be made based on Tsai's UoL student file, not Tsai's LSE student file. Was the student file retrieved from the archives and reviewed by Underwood in 2015 Tsai's UoL student file? Or Tsai's LSE student file? It is worth noting that when responding to Underwood's email on July 3, 2015, LC had read Tsai's UoL student file 4 days ago, on June 29, 2015. In LC's email dated June 29, 2015, LC did not confirm Tsai's 1984 PhD degree. After learning that Underwood confirmed the validity of Tsai's PhD degree, LC made an offer. We have retrieved Dr. Tsai's file from our archives, and I can send you through a scanned copy if that would be useful. Underwood knew that UoL had jurisdiction over the PhD examination and PhD award. Oddly, he directed all the inquiries to LC at the Senate House, but declined LC's kind offer of Tsai's UoL student file for his investigation and confirmation of the validity of Tsai's 1984 PhD. It indicates that when Underwood confirmed the validity of Tsai's 1984 PhD degree, he did not have Tsai's UoL student file, and the student file retrieved from the archives was not Tsai's UoL student file. In addition, the confirmation of Tsai's 1984 PhD at the beginning of July 2015 was most likely the last major undertaking of Underwood's tenure at LSE. He retired around July 20, 2015. Mark Thompson assumed his position as the new LSE academic registrar in August 2015. Before the media statement was sent to the Taiwan People News on June 12, 2019, Tsai's office emailed Clive Wilson, promising to provide an electronic copy of Tsai's doctoral thesis for the LSE internal check. Wilson and Sue Donnelly are two of the few at LSE who were involved in investigating Tsai's non-existing doctoral thesis in 2015. On June 14, 2019, Wilson emailed Donnelly, asking her to retrieve Tsai's record again, most likely for the LSE internal check. He also asked if UoL had a separate record that should be requested. Donnelly responded on June 17, 2019, at 12:05. I still have the scan done for the previous inquiries, and I attach it to this email. She also included the information she found in Tsai's LSE student file. The relevant pages are, I think, 43 to 46, which include a certificate from the University of London confirming the award of the PhD on 14 March 1984. It looks as though there was a problem with some of the paperwork from her supervisor. An attached list of the head of the LSE legal team, Kevin Haynes' email on July 23, 2020, confirms that the student file sent from Donnelly to Wilson was Tsai's LSE student file. Haynes' email was sent to the Taipei Representative Office in the UK in response to the Taiwan Taipei District Prosecutor's Office's request for authenticating evidence. According to the attached list, 2 pages of Document 3 were found on pages 42 and 43 of Tsai's LSE student file. Document 3 was one of the documents requested to be authenticated by the prosecutor's office. It consisted of 3 documents: a copy of the letter from the Free Chinese Center in the UK on September 23, 1987, a copy of P.C. Kennedy's letter of certification on September 30, 1987, and a copy of Tsai's PhD diploma issued on March 14, 1984. The UoL certificate mentioned in Donnelly's email and found by her on one page between page 43 and page 46 was Kennedy's letter of certification. It was verified as authentic by Haynes on July 23, 2020. It is unknown how Kennedy's letter found its way into Tsai's LSE student file. However, a line was included in Kennedy's letter. I have passed your letter to the London School of Economics and Political Science in the hope they may be able to help you further. The list sent by Haynes on July 23, 2020, confirms that the student file emailed from Donnelly to Wilson was Tsai's LSE student file. No records show that LSE had ever requested Tsai's UoL student file to investigate Tsai's 1984 PhD in 2019. LSE's press statements and general responses released by emails in June 2019 invited even more questions. On June 20, 2019, Clive Wilson suggested to amend the standard reply to answer more questions. Cerny disagreed. One of his reasons shows that he was reluctant to reinvestigate the validity of Tsai's 1984 PhD. A review of the file was undertaken by Simeon as the academic registrar in 2015, which concluded that he was satisfied that there was not an issue of the registration or award being in any way questionable. I am not sure it is appropriate to enter into discussion about this other than to confirm the award and that LSE is satisfied with this. On the morning of June 24, 2019, Cerny was alerted by an external email to the tale that Tsai's doctoral thesis was such a piece of work it was worth 2 PhDs.
那我记得，可是我的论文写得很快，但是英国人的速度很慢，就是表示说他的审你的论文就审了半年，审完了以后他又请你去口试，那个口试我也很紧张，我姐又跟着我去了哈，那我就进去口试，口试了大概2个钟头，他们就让我出来。我就站在外面，好紧张，好紧张。我就想说，为什么让我站在外面这么久不让我进去呢？是不是准备要当掉了？我姐姐在旁边告诉我说，不用紧张，他们可能在里面讨论这个伦敦的哪一家的汉堡最好吃。我想说，你在这个时候还跟我开玩笑。过了一阵子，我的指导老师就把头探出来，他说：“Miss Tan，你进来一下。”那我就进去了。 但是我们讨论了很久，倒也不是讨论要不要给你博士学位，我们要讨论是给你1个博士学位还是给你2个博士学位。那最荒谬的事情是什么？我有3个 examiner， 是3个口试委员。这个因为我的论文是法律跟经济的混合体，所以一个是我的指导老师，一个是经济学家，一个是学法律。那个律师就说你的经济部分写得不错，那个经济学家说我法律的部分写得不错。这个大概是有史以来我们政经学院最令人惊奇的这个博士论文考试。然后最后他们决定给我1.5个学位。
Cerny's reaction was, "I've copied Mark to check if the registration file is to hand or whether we can retrieve it if not. I'm not interested in reviewing Simeon's considerations, but I just want to make sure that I am taking any dates from the official file." After a meeting before noon, Cerny took over Underwood's role in investigating the degree award. At 12:22, Wilson emailed Sue Donnelly and Rachel McGuire, the Information and Record Manager at LSE, requesting authorization to send size LSE student file to Cerny. 7 minutes later, McGuire responded, "If the investigation is being carried out by Marcus, he should have the file." At 12:42, Cerny clarified that he was not carrying out a new investigation because Underwood had already conducted the investigation. He needed the file so he could take on the role Underwood had undertaken and advise on any issues around registration, from the LSE perspective. To prep Mark Thompson for the meeting before noon, Clive Wilson emailed Thompson at 9:43. The attachments indicate that Thompson received size LSE student file at 9:43. For your information, please see summary below and student record attached. After the meeting, at 12:43, Thompson emailed his predecessor. In the email, Thompson restated Underwood's conclusion in 2015. "You are satisfied that, on the basis of the available evidence, all proper UoL procedures for the award of a PhD degree were followed despite neither the LSE nor the UoL being able to locate a copy of the thesis." Underwood responded the next day, June 25, 2019, at 9:05. "My recollection is that it was no big deal. I got the student file from the archive, and then liaised with the Senate House. All the paperwork was in order." Unlike some student files Underwood had seen, notably the senior New Zealand civil servant who might have fraudulently claimed a PhD, Underwood found that all the paperwork was in order in size student file. He was not sure there were any workings. No records show that Underwood or anyone else at LSE cared for or investigated either in 2015 or 2019. Thompson responded about 7 minutes later at 9:11. That all tallies with what he could make out. He had no doubt that the award was made in line with the UoL requirements at the time. It suggests that Thompson had reviewed size student file, too. Later that day, Thompson reported his email communication with Underwood to his colleagues at LSE at 1938. He had some memory of the case. His review amounted to looking carefully at the archived file. He concluded that all of the paperwork was in order that indicated the award was made. 2 LSE academic registrars concluded that, no doubt that the degree award is valid, all proper UoL procedures for the award of a PhD degree were followed, all of the paperwork was in order, and the award was made in line with the UoL requirements at the time. Did they review size UoL student file? Or size LSE student file? On June 25, 2019, at 16:37, Wilson sent Cerny a copy of size student record. On June 26, 2019, at 10:25, Cerny informed his colleagues at LSE about his review of size LSE student file. "Just to note that I've read through the LSE file, and it is, very disappointingly, given the huge interest in it, an incredibly boring read. Simeon's memory of it is spot on. Cerny's email confirms that the file reviewed by Underwood in 2015 and by Mark Thompson in 2019 was size LSE student file retrieved from the LSE archives. Their conclusions are in direct contradiction to LSE's submission to the Commissioner that size LSE student file did not include details of her final examination or Viva, and the Commissioner's finding that UoL had the records pertaining to size PhD exam based on UoL's jurisdiction over PhD exam. Before November 26, 2021, the Commissioner had issued numerous decision notices concerning size PhD award. The Commission's finding was based on LSE's reiteration. It indicates LSE knew very well that, since the UoL was the degree-awarding body, LSE could not confirm size PhD based on size LSE student file because it did not include details of size final examination or Viva. Underwood's email on July 2, 2015, evidences that he knew UoL had jurisdiction over PhD exam and its aftermath. He even requested UoL to deal with all the inquiries arising from size non-existing doctoral thesis. Thompson's conclusion on June 25, 2019, that no doubt the award was made in line with the UoL requirements at the time evidences that he knew the UoL had jurisdiction over the PhD exam and PhD award in the early 1980s. Cerny's email on June 11, 2019, evidence that he knew that size PhD was a UoL award and that UoL was responsible for examination paperwork and deposit of thesis paperwork. He even expressed that he would defer to UoL's jurisdiction. They all knew size LSE student file was not supposed to have the records pertaining to size PhD exam and PhD award. They also knew that they could not make the conclusions they made based on size LSE student file. The email communications between Cerny and Thompson indicate that the student records were managed by the academic registrar. As academic registrar, Underwood and Thompson knew better than anyone else at LSE. Furthermore, they all disregarded Underwood's finding about the features of the process which reflect the academic habits of the mid-1980s and would be frowned upon today, and Donnelly's finding about the problem with some of the paperwork from size supervisor. They all saw P.C. Kennedy's letter of certification in size LSE student file, which certified that size PhD was awarded after a course of research and the submission of a thesis title. It is in direct contradiction to their conclusions that all proper UoL procedures for the award of a PhD degree were followed. After reviewing size LSE student file, 2 days later, on June 28, 2019, while discussing how to catalog size personal copy of the thesis received by LSE the day before, Cerny stated that, "We are satisfied that the thesis was correctly awarded in line with the relevant procedures." On July 2, 2019, Daniel O'Connor responded to Wan Lin's inquiry, stating that all records indicate the PhD was correctly awarded and in line with relevant procedures. The situation in Taiwan continued to deteriorate. On September 16, 2019, Tsai's office recommended LSE issue a press statement to reconfirm that Tsai had been awarded a PhD or file a lawsuit against smear tactics. 4 points were to be included in the new press statement to be released on the LSE official website. One was this procedure is in line with the school's regulation. Even Clive Wilson, a low-ranking manager at the LSE library, knew that it would come under the jurisdiction of the UoL. Another one was LSE possesses all relevant information pertaining to Dr. Tsai's degree, including Tsai's thesis submission date and PhD examination date. Wilson was one of the few who had read Tsai's LSE student file. He found the statement definitely correct. The day before LSE released the press statement to confirm Tsai's 1984 PhD, on October 7, 2019, at 12:24, Louise Nadal, LSE school secretary, emailed Simon Hicks, asking if there was an internal investigation going on about Tsai's non-existing doctoral thesis and PhD degree. Hicks replied in the negative at 13:39. His understanding was that the PhD Academy had looked into the matter and concluded that everything was above board from the LSE's perspective. He then raised the jurisdiction question. It was the UoL who held the hard copy of the thesis, as the degree had been awarded by them. At 1430, Nadal asked Marcus Cerny to answer the jurisdiction question. Cerny responded at 1558. He admitted that UoL had jurisdiction over the PhD award. About the validity of Tsai's 1984 PhD, Cerny reported that this was initially reviewed by Simeon Underwood in 2015. I have read the file, and Simeon was satisfied after reviewing the file. I took the line that I was not interested in reopening a question that had been answered before my arrival, but for what it's worth, I have read through the electronic version of the file and agree with Simeon. They all knew that the PhD Academy's conclusion was made from LSE's perspective, but it was UoL that had the jurisdiction over the PhD exam and PhD award. Nevertheless, the next day, October 8, 2019, LSE released the press statement. We can be clear the records of LSE and of the University of London, the degree awarding body at the time, confirmed that Dr. Tsai was correctly awarded a PhD in law in 1984. The truth is LSE conducted no internal investigation. The LSE records they had at the time were the list of 1984 PhD graduates found in the 1985-1986 LSE calendar, Underwood's email dated July 2, 2015, and Tsai's LSE student file retrieved from the LSE archives. LSE's email dated June 29, 2015, is a UoL record, but it did not confirm Tsai's 1984 PhD degree. Except for LSE's email dated June 29, 2015, all UoL records they had at the time were found in Tsai's LSE student file, including P.C. Kennedy's letter of certification confirming Tsai's PhD was awarded after submission of a thesis title, and a copy of Tsai's Viva result notification letter that had never been retained in Tsai's UoL student file. The records of Tsai's thesis committee and oral defense committee were kept by UoL, but in 2015, Underwood decided that all information relating to Tsai's thesis committee and the oral defense committee could not be released without Tsai's permission. The confirmation of Tsai's 1984 PhD degree made by LSE in 2019 was based almost entirely on Tsai's LSE student file and the reviews of Tsai's LSE student file by Simeon Underwood in 2015 and Mark Thompson and Marcus Cerny in 2019. It raises serious issues of ethics and academic integrity of the LSE, the integrity of Tsai's LSE student file, and the integrity of the LSE archives in which Tsai's LSE student file was stored.